The Forbidden Banns by Thomas Hardy, 1840 to 1928. Oh, what's the gain, my worthy sir, in stopping the banns today? Your son declares he'll marry her, if 1,000 folk say nay. I'll do it, whether or no. And if I drop down dead, to church this morning I will go, and say they shall not wed. That day the parson clear outspoke the maid's name and the man's. His father, mid the assembled folk, said, I forbid the banns. Then white in face, lips pale and cold, he turned him to sit down. When he fell forward, and behold, they found his life had flown. 'Twas night time, towards the middle part, when lo her husband said, I would from the bottom of my heart that father was not dead. She turned from one to the other side, and a sad woman was she. As he went on, he'd not have died, had it not been for me. She brought him soon an idiot child, and then she brought another. His face waned wan, his manner wild, with hatred of their mother. Hearken to me, my son, no, no, there's madness in her blood. Those were his father's words, and lo, now he understood. What noise is that? One noise, and two, resound from a near gun. 2 corpses found, and neighbours knew by whom the deed was done. Okay, this is a poem by Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy was a British author and poet. Let's see, his novels were Victorian realism, in the same way as George Eliot wrote. But in his poems, normally they are more romanticism, like Wordsworth or maybe Coleridge Taylor. But this poem is a narrative poem about a story. And this poem is about a marriage that was doomed. Now, first of all, we look at the title, The Forbidden Banns. Now, the banns of marriage, normally a double N, but it could be a single N, are a public announcement in the church where the marriage is going to take place. And this is an announcement that 2 people are going to get married. And this was to ensure that there was no valid legal reason why these 2 people shouldn't get married. For example, they were brother and sister, or one of them were married, or something like that, a vow of celibacy. But this is a poem about a couple that marry, despite the fact that the father of the boy says that they shouldn't get married, and he says this when the banns of marriage are read in the church. The banns need to be read in the local church 3 times. Oh, what's the gain, my worthy sir, in stopping the banns today? Your son declares he'll marry her, if 1,000 folk say nay. So this is the parish priest speaking. And we suddenly start in the middle of this story. We don't know what's going on, but the priest is talking to a father, and he says, why are you going to protest during the banns of marriage? I'm going to declare the banns of marriage in the service today. And your son says that he's going to marry her even if 1,000 people say no during the banns of marriage. So we've got this father who is clearly against the marriage. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. And here we've got clearly a dialect, whether or not. And if I drop down dead, to church this morning I will go, and say they shall not wed. So this is the father, and he says, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Whatever happens. Even if I drop down dead, I'm going to the church and I'm going to say that they mustn't get married. So even if I die before it happens, I'm going to come as a ghost and protest against their marriage and protest saying that they mustn't get married. That day the parson clear outspoke the maid's name and the man's. His father mid the assembled folk said, I forbid the banns. So the priest announced, the priest announced their names in church, the name of the man and the woman who were going to get married. But his father after this said no. Because this happens in the middle of the church service. The father said, I forbid the banns. But the point is, the father can't stop them marrying with the banns. It's only because it can only stop a marriage because there is a valid legal reason. And the fact that he doesn't want them to marry is not a valid legal reason. Then white in face, lips pale and cold, he turned him to sit down. When he fell forward, and behold, they found his life had flown. So his face went white, and his lips went pale and cold, and he turned to sit down. But he fell forward, and they found, and look, behold, they discovered that he was dead. So the father has stood up during the church service when the banns are read and said, I forbid the marriage. I forbid it. I'm against it. And then his face goes white and he falls forward, and everybody suddenly realizes he's dead. And now we have the second part, which happens later. 'Twas night time, towards the middle part, when lo her husband said, I would from the bottom of my heart that father was not dead. So it's the middle of the night. And the husband is whispering quietly to his wife. So they've got married. This is after they've got married. And he says to his wife, from the bottom of my heart, I wish that father was not dead. I would rather that he wasn't dead. I wish that he wasn't dead. She turned from one to the other side. A sad woman was she. As he went on, he'd not have died had it not been for me. So here I get the feeling she turns her back to him. Yeah? She turns from one side to the other. She turns over, and I think she's turning her back on him. A sad woman was she, so she's very sad. And he went on, he'd not have died had it not been for me. So if I hadn't married you, if we hadn't got married, he wouldn't have died. It's all my fault. So the son is now feeling guilty for marrying her, because he feels that maybe he's caused the death of his father. She brought him soon an idiot child, and then she brought another. His face waned wan, his manner wild, with hatred of their mother. So soon they had children. They had 2 children, And I think both of these were idiot children. They were there was something wrong with them, with both of them mentally. And the face of the father waned. To wane is to disappear. The moon waxes, gets big, and wanes, gets smaller. So his face waned one, his face fell, his face became small and wan. One is white, is pallid, without life, without energy. And his manner, the way he lived, became wild. And he started to hate the mother of the child. He started to hate his wife. Also, look at this alliteration. His face waned wan, his manner wild. Waned wan, wild. Okay, so I think this is showing perhaps the insanity. Insanity is coming upon the marriage. Hearken to me, my son. Listen to me, my son. This is the father speaking now, but further back in the past. No, the son says, I'm not going to listen, I'm not going to listen. There's madness in her blood. So there's something wrong with the family. There's somebody in the family is mad. There is something wrong with the family. That there is insanity in the family, and this is why you shouldn't marry her. Those were his father's words. That's what his father had said to him. There's madness in her blood. There's insanity in the family. And lo and look, now he understood. So he's had two children that are that have mental problems, and his father has already said, no, there's madness in her blood. But now he understood what his father said. He didn't want to listen to him. So the first is an idiot child. What noise is that? One noise, and two, resound from a near gun. So then we hear two gunshots. They're two shots from a gun. Two corpses found, two dead bodies, and neighbours knew by whom the deed was done. So then there were two dead bodies, and the neighbours knew who had done the killing. And we have to imagine, I think the most logical idea from this is that the man shot his wife and then he shot himself. Although he might have shot the wife and one of the children, but I think, to me, it's clearly the man shot his wife and then he shot himself. So it's like this marriage was doomed from the start. That everything was wrong. It starts with the bans, and his father dies prohibiting the marriage, and then they have an idiot child, and then another. And I think the son feels guilt at the death of his father, and things go on, and finally the man kills his wife and himself. So, The Forbidden Banns by Thomas Hardy.